There we go. There we go. Whoa, what's going on? And you're still muted. Oh man, we're having some technical difficulties today. Holy crow. Hi. Welcome to the Writing Gales podcast. Woo! We're struggling. We're on our way.
Oh, we made it. We made it. How are you?
I'm great. Good to see you.
You too. You too. Oh gosh. If you need something done, ask a teenager. Eh? I still don't know how to do it, but never mind. Oh, right. Welcome to Writing Gales. We are new show. We are starting the new year with a bang. And welcome. We are doing what we've done before, which is all about books, reading, writing, storytelling, poetry, the whole lot. And we're also across the globe as well, aren't we, Adam?
We are, indeed.
You're in beautiful, sunny, warm states, aren't you, at the moment?
I'm under a blanket of ice in Portland right now. Yes, it's been brutal here, but and you're in somewhere else.
I'm somewhere that's not windy at all, as Storm Aisha wrecks the country. But never mind. Let's get to it. So today,
let's introduce ourselves. We've got to have our proper introductions.
You go first.
Me go first. Okay. Hi, I'm Adam Andrews Johnson. I've been writing for a little while, and I've got several books out now. I'm the author of the Mantis Gland series. There's book 1, Mantis Variant, book 2, Mantis Equilibrium, Mantis Corruption, book 3, and Mantis Continuum, book 4, which came out on Halloween, which I'm very excited about. That's a fun one. And yeah, so that's me. And then who are you?
You are very productive. I'm very jealous. I am Jules. I write dark fantasy and science fantasy. I do have old front covers, but I've got new front covers that are currently in the process of being made by a lovely guest who we've had on here before, which I won't say their name because they'll be embarrassed, but they are amazing. And so I'm very much looking forward to the work that they're going to produce. So I haven't got any books to show you, but I have written 4 books. I'm currently in the writing another 4 books, including a lovely one that Adam and I are currently working on at the moment. That
Remind everyone what the name of your books that are available are.
So I have my dark fantasy series is of Thorns and Demons and of Shadow and Swords, and book 3 is going to be out at some point soonish, and it's called Of Blood and Bow. So look out for that one. And I've got a children's series as well, which is again, so it kind of focuses on mental health and mental well-being, and has monsters, fairies, and dogs in it.
Love that.
Dogs just make the whole world better. And so, they're already out at the moment. You can find my books actually in Waterstones, which is a major UK retailer for books, which is the biggest bookstore in the UK. But they also have online as well. So, there is me. So, Adam, what are we talking about today? What we going to have a chinwag about today on our show?
We're probably going to use some naughty language just because it's inevitable, but we're playing Fuck, Marry, Kill with characters from our books. So
nice.
who would you fuck, marry, and kill from your books, which is hilarious and amusing. And there's so many options with all the characters.
It is. It's really interesting, actually, because when I mentioned it to my family, they were like, oh, that's just easy. You just kill off the bad guy. And I was just like, not necessarily. Some people go for the bad guys. Some people really like the bad guy.
Of course,
Sometimes the bad guy is actually the best character in the story. So it depends. I have to say, I definitely wouldn't. In my ones, especially not in the other series, but in my dark fantasy series, no. My baddie is a proper baddie. We'll leave it at that for now. Now we've got some amazing authors waiting for us in the wings super patiently. They've been really awesome and very, very patient. I have got their book covers here as well. Hopefully that will work. Let's get to it. Let's bring them all on in one fell swoop, sort of. I just accidentally added and then removed Qualia. I'm so sorry. I double clicked you. I'm sorry. Let me see if I can. Look, you look amazing now. Is that better? That's a bit better, isn't it? Everyone better now.
Will it realign? I don't know. Well, hi, welcome everyone. Hi everyone. Each of you have been on the show at least once before. Welcome back. Thanks so much for being here. Dylan, you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what your writing is, where we can get it, the names of the books, everything?
Of course, I am Dylan Brody, humorist, storyteller, author, purveyor of fine words and phrases, relatively painless, and Laughs Last are currently available at dylanbrody.com/emporium. And I have a new book coming out this year with Danu Books, published by the lovely and talented Jules Grant, called Merlin's Mistake, on which I've been developing the intellectual property as a limited series as well with Active Voice Productions. So I am having a wonderful time with Danu and the process of getting the cover finalized and figuring out what we're doing with the release of the book. That's who I am. Hi guys, how are you?
Yay! Thanks for being here. Thanks for coming back. Yeah.
Let me just say, I so admire your fingernails, Adam.
Oh, thank you.
I was wrapped up in what you were saying, and then suddenly I was just utterly enamored of the fingernails, and enameled of the fingernails.
Utterly enameled. Right. Thank you for noticing. It's so subtle of me anyway, so thanks for picking up on it. Cool. Qualia, welcome back. So happy to have you here. Would you like to tell us a little bit about your work, introduce yourself, where we can get it, all those good things?
Sure. My name's Qualia Reed. I'm an author here in Canada. I write primarily science fiction and fantasy from a queer and LGBT primarily standpoint, but I also just love to focus on the dreamy, sublime, surreal, weird, kind of cyberpunky kind of side of things. You can buy most of my books as ebooks wherever ebooks are available. And I do have some paperbacks of my 6 books that I've published that are available on Amazon.
Wow. 6 books. That's awesome.
Yeah, that was a busy year.
You and Adam have been very busy at your computers. I apologize on behalf of my dog.
No. Awesome. Gio, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your writing and what you do?
Hi, I'm Gio. I'm South African. I am currently writing a fantasy series. It's called The Kingdom of Ura. I'm a really big fantasy fan and I'm a very big classics fan. So my favorites are like Brandon Sanderson and Emily Bronte and Charlotte Bronte, and so I kind of try to take classics and fantasy and combine them and take and create this world called the Kingdom of Ura, which is literally, it's Victorian England but with magic, and it's very, very queer positive all the way. So I published two books. Third Time's the Charm, the first one. Second one is Hounded, and the third one, In Everything But Beauty, is coming in 29th of February, but I've also already written and printed Grimm, the 4th one, and Monstrous, the 5th one.
Whoa!
And I'm writing the 6th and 7th one at the moment. There'll be 7 in the series. So yeah, that's my writing journey. But yeah, basically the Kingdom of Ura is it's a series, but each book has a different protagonist set in a different time period. And so it's like a series of interconnected stories rather than a linear series. So
very creative.
Yeah. So every single book is its own self-contained story, and then by the end, by the 7th book, the heroes or their friends or co-workers or families kind of see how, because the earliest entry in the series is the year 1800 and the last one is the year 1920. So it's a huge time span that happens in the series. And in the last book, the heroes kind of see how they're all actually related. They know each other. They've had dealings in the past. Some of the villains are their family. They're kind of all interconnected in one big story where they all know each other, but they're unaware of it until the very end. So, yeah, that's
very creative. Yeah, very cool.
Yes. Awesome. Very cool. Very, very cool. Okay, so we have got a cool subject to do today. So definitely not for the kiddywinks. So in terms of your books, we need to think about who would you kill, who would you marry, and who would you just fuck. And like I said at the beginning, not always the villain is a bad thing. Some people really love their villains. So have a think about it. And we would also love you to do some reading as well from your work if you would like to. So you can share your work with the world. And I'm currently going live on Instagram at the moment, but I'm doing it through the live thing. So it's going to look really weird on Instagram live. People are going to be wondering why it's just me on the camera the entire time.
And they can't hear any. They can't see any of us. That's hilarious.
No, it's very weird, but they can hear you, so that's the most important thing. So I'll endeavour to try and fix the tech issues.
On Instagram, it just looks like Jules Grant's narcissistic podcast.
We're all here for you.
Well, did you not realise this at the beginning? God.
Of course. No.
All right. So, Adam, would you like to go first?
Yeah. So where do we begin? I think we should start with the kill. I think we should start with the kill first. Let's start with that. That's the. I think the.
Are we
going to
do that way?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you're right. Some people are going to be like, "Oh, you kill off the villain because they're the whoever," but the story would change so much if especially in my book, if I killed one of my main protagonists. If I were to say, "Well, what if I kill them in the first chapter and ruin the whole rest of the story?" That to me is a totally interesting concept that I didn't really think about until we talked about this subject for our show today. I was like, who would I kill in real life if I was friends with them? And I was like, wait a minute, what if I lived in their story and I killed it and then altered the story of everything? Yeah, so I went down some.
I love how you started with the real life person first. Who would I actually kill in real life? Let me think about this.
Right? I mean, isn't that the point?
I don't think this scrolls long enough, is there? Oh, it's an interesting one, and it's also a topic that I put out to our Discord. So if you're listening and you're a reader, or you're watching and you're a reader, or you're a writer or an author or a poet, and you're also part of this, or you're watching it any other time and you want to be part of our Discord, just drop a message to Adam and myself. Our links are at the end, and we'll put our links up on the screen as well in a short while, and then you'll be able to message us and let us know that you would like to join the Discord. I have to say, out of all the social media platforms that we have, it's probably the nicest community I've ever been on. What do you think, Adam?
Oh, I agree, absolutely. Yeah, our Discord group is so fabulous. Yep. So if anybody out there is watching, we are also live on YouTube right now, where you can also comment. But if you're watching and you want to be part of the Discord group, just reach out to one of us, and we'll send you the link.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, this topic was kind of chosen by them, really, wasn't it? I put it out as individual topics, and everyone voted for all of them. So it's like, let's amalgamate them all together. What about you, Dylan? Who would you kill off in your books?
Okay, when I saw that this was the topic, I went into a neurotic spiral. First, I was going to start with relatively painless, but that thing is so autobiographical and family-oriented that it just started to. One time on stage, I accidentally said my wife when I meant my mother, and it freaked me out so badly that for 6 weeks I could not perform sexually with either of them. So I just set that whole book aside and went to the Merlin book, and and it still bothered me because the idea of approaching people in that categorization just feels like a holdover from all the sexualizing and violent fantasies of the last millennia that I'm so trying to overcome with my work. So with all of those codicils in place, it would be Sophia. No, it would be Nimue Sophia. Nimue is the fairy goddess who brings the sword from the lake for Arthur in the old legends and returns again. The segment I'm going to read actually returns again with it for Merlin in the new book. and she is just all sexuality when she wants to be, but also detached enough because she's not mortal that it wouldn't, fuck up my marriage or her that I was going to go back to my marriage afterwards. So that's my firmly considered who would I fuck. I would definitely marry Sophia, except that would fuck up her relationship with Merlin. So I would just have to marry Merlin and Sophia into some weird throuple.
Rubble, yeah, bring it on.
And as both of them are written as aspects of myself, then it would be the Dylan Brody narcissistic podcast, where it's really just three-way masturbation and who can object. And then,
Did we mention this wasn't suitable for kids?
I understood that when I was going on a podcast to discuss fuck, marry, kill, I wasn't going to have to learn the language so much. And then the final one for who would I kill? Good God, the whole book is about finding solutions other than killing our enemies. So I'm going to have to say that whoever I might consider killing, I just need to be a better human and befriend them instead.
Thanks for taking our game and flipping it on its head for us and making us all feel guilty about it. That's lovely.
No, I don't feel guilty at all.
No, so do I.
I'm not going to go into the world being a Howard Stern guest if that's not who I feel like. I love you guys. Sorry, I don't play right with.
No.
It's all right. You have to go sit in the naughty corner now for like however many minutes it is per your age.
No, we got to talk about throuple for a moment and the idea of different styles of relationships. I think it was totally worthwhile and very on point for our podcast.
Every time
Let's
I
go.
do this podcast, I have to sit in the naughty corner. Oh.
It's all right. Let's tap into what Adam wants. Adam wants to talk about the throuple. Let's go.
I just think that any kind of outside of the norm relationship is a beautiful thing that should be celebrated.
And the more we can introduce and use the normalizing language for it, the more people accustom themselves to a wider array of possibilities.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. Oh. that was really nice. I like that.
Jules, have you done your fuck, marry, kill yet? Shall we dive in and
Have I done it?
give us just one of them?
Okay. Who? What? Sorry.
Or just one? You don't have to do all three right now. Who would you kill?
Okay. I'm torn between two characters at the moment. I'm torn between my the really arch nemesis at the moment called Octavius, who is kind of like the mastermind of this like interplanetary army that he's creating to try and basically destroy all life on this planet. And obviously he's a pretty bad guy. And obviously if he wasn't around, then life would be a lot better for everyone. My fringe is doing the same thing tonight. I do apologize. Slightly too long. It's like too long for my face. So it's just like in its own world. The other guy is the tormentor, who we don't know the name of. The audience or the reader doesn't know the name of. But he's a sadomasochist and loves to torture little kids. And I think that's a pretty good reason to say, yeah.
But worthy choices.
Well, no, they're not my only choice. You know, my other choice would actually be Nayli, which people, if they've read the book, would be aghast at because she's actually a child. But she's actually going to cause quite a lot of problems for Ray as the story progresses. And although she's Ray's little sister, she doesn't agree with Ray's decisions, and it's going to cause a lot of problems for Ray. Like, for example, being held accountable for her actions that happen in of Shadow and Swords, where she ends up really demonstrating her dark side. And so Nayli, she also has a dark side, but it comes out in a more scholarly type way. So yeah, she would be another one, but that would be very controversial because she's like 10. So yeah, that would be my
twist. Gio or Aquila, who would like to go next? Who'd you kill? series, Gio?
Okay, so in the two books I'm going to talk about today, Hounded and In Everything But Beauty. In Hounded, the main character is marriage material. He is sweet, he's kind, he's caring, he's just everything. And everyone mistreats him so badly throughout the entire novel. Everyone except his friends and the local witch. The local witches, the whole town, including his own dad, kind of just treats him awfully. So, but he ends up being a very sweet person, and so that's marriage material. Kill would be definitely the villains, and one of whom is his father, who, because Hounded is a werewolf reimagining. His father's actions actually instigate the instantiation of a werewolf. But his father, instead of taking responsibility, blames him. And so they have to kind of get to the bottom of where this werewolf comes from and why. And the town blames him for its appearance when it is actually his father and the magistrate and the town sheriff. It is actually their fault. But rather than say so, they rather shift the blame to him and say, it's you. And everyone believes them. And so they would obviously die. For copulation purposes, would definitely be Grant. He's a witch, a moon witch, and he tends to be very vain and flirty with nearly everyone. So that would be him. And for In Everything But Beauty, which is a Dorian Gray retelling. Yeah, so another moon witch, a vain one named Ambrose, sees a handsome man, and the man's in a pub, year 1900, gaslights everything. It's this beautiful romantic pub, and he says, I want to paint 4 pictures of you. And he says, okay, fine, I will let you paint pictures of me for money. And so then on 4 different dates, they go on dates, and each painting, there's kind of flirty banter, there's dialogue, and Richard, the painter, who's actually Dorian Gray, he actually paints this guy's picture and then ends up, as in the story, stealing his youth. And then throughout the story, Ambrose has to find each painting and break it in order to free himself. But in order to break this painting, he has to confront something horrible he did in his past and make a better decision now than what he did previously. And he was awful. And people just let him getting away with his behavior because he was attractive. And he did truly horrific things to people, and they just let him get away with it every single time because he just looked so pretty. So with Ambrose, he's very vain, but he's so fun and intelligent. It's definitely just a one-time bang. With Kill, it would definitely be Dorian. He has done this to men repeatedly, taking their youth and leaving them as dry husks. In one of the scenes in the end was actually where Ambrose finally uses his witch powers, his moon witch powers, gets all witched up and goes to confront Dorian in his magical manner, and he goes in and there's just floors and floors and floors worth of paintings of people. So he's been doing this for hundreds of years, just getting people to survive. And so when in this final scene, when he has to find Dorian's painting of his own self and kill it to stop this wizard. So anyways, so Tuesta would be Dorian, and to marry, actually, I think there is a character called Nava, who's a fawn, like a half goat, half man.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's the sweetest thing. He was in league with Dorian initially, but he was actually manipulated into that position, and he's just the sweetest guy. So that would be married, but definitely. But for death, it would be Dorian. For bang, it would be Ambrose. That for that would.
Awesome. Thank you for going into so much detail. I really appreciated you telling us about the characters and stuff. That was awesome. Yeah.
Thank you.
If I may just say, I recently realized how much I'm aging. And in a visit to my parents' house, I went into the attic, and there's a painting of me from my mid-20s, and it hasn't aged at all.
Ooh.
That's scary. That's scary. That's like the beginning of a movie, a horror movie, isn't it? When you kind of like find like a painting that was painted like 800 years ago, and the person in the painting is like your doppelganger. Almost. Or finding the painting that was painted when it was originally painted, and then actually it's aged at the same rate you have, but like the hair and the beard or the
I blame that painting for all of my aging.
It should be you that's staying young, and you've just grayed away. It's terrible.
like sucking the life. That's another story, isn't it? Being able to suck the life out of you, literally. That's a scary story. That's a good story.
I
Why
like,
did you
I like what you wrote about that sort of concept, Gio. That was really cool. So, Quelia, tell us where you are with yours.
Thanks. I just wanted to say as well, I love Dorian Gray, so that sounds really exciting. I love Oscar Wilde. I spent some time
Oh, he's amazing. He's the smartest man ever. He's so intelligent.
I got to spend some time checking out Oscar Wilde's grave, and it's like covered in lipstick kisses, and I thought that was amazing. In terms of my story that I'm thinking of off the top of my head, I'm pretty much ready to kill any character at any time. And I like people to read it. I like people to read my stories knowing that everyone's up for grabs. Which in itself creates dramatic tension in the story because this takes place hundreds of millions of years in the future, and humanity are basically immortal. If you die, you wake up in a rebirthing chamber somewhere else. So everybody that's not human kind of has a chip on their shoulder because humans don't let this technology be available for everyone.
Okay.
So death doesn't mean anything for humans as they try to conquer the universe, but for everyone else it means finality. And so in my latest story, Electra has been definitely some characters that I really like had to die. But yeah, I like to make it so everybody's potentially ready to die. In terms of fucking Mary, I would definitely fuck my main protagonist because I love her so much. And also, she's kind of based partially on me, so it's kind of narcissistic, but I felt it was less narcissistic to say fuck than Mary. And I feel like in the context of that universe, I would maybe marry one of the other protagonists named Jake because I feel like he would be a really good spouse.
Awesome.
That's cool.
And
I was sorry, go on.
Okay, so with your talk of aliens and humans being able to stay alive, do you have a lot of other species that you include in the story?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, in this novel, I think there's probably half a dozen that kind of feature prominently.
Wow.
But one of the themes of the story is humanity's ceaseless lust for expansion. So the evolution of the church, millions of years in the future, are having a preordained mission that they think they're going to save the universe by making it basically a humans-only universe. So other non-human species get progressively pushed further and further out from the galactic center.
Wow. And are these other species very human, or are they similar to us? Or are they wildly different? Or
some of them are very similar. Some of them have minor variations. One of the main characters grew up on an ice world, so she resembles what in dark fantasy you could imagine a dark elf being.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like a icy blue, dark indigo skin. They all have white hair and white eyes, or black eyes and red eyes, but otherwise kind of look vaguely humanoid, kind of more elfish. Then there's other characters like the non-binary Ursuans who look like 12-foot tall grizzly bears that can walk and talk.
I like it.
And then it gets even weirder from there. I have a story that I'm working on that's in that universe right now where one of the characters is a sentient virus. So
excellent.
Exists kind of in a cloud until it occupies a host, and then it can speak through the host.
Ooh, that's cool.
That is very cool. I like the fact that you've kind of mixed dark fantasy with kind of space stuff as well. That's really cool.
Oh,
I like it.
yeah.
I think they lend to each other so well.
Yeah,
I
they
think
do.
I'm leaning more into that in a new story that I'm working on that I'm really excited about, which is like if Lord of the Rings, if you took that story and carried it on for another 5 million years, where would all those species be if they were galactic? So I think when I was a teenager, I played a lot of StarCraft, so kind of based on some of that as well. But also like I really love genre blending, so this new story that I'm working on for a new novel is going to be like a really high energy punk rock,
Ooh.
Lord of the Rings meets The Matrix meets, I don't know if anybody ever watched the TV show Sense8. So like very queer and sexy, but like also with a lot of like sci-fi and fantasy blending elements.
Nice. That's cool.
That sounds awesome.
I was laughing.
I can't wait for all three of you to read. Yeah, no, totally.
I was trying to put some comments on the to go out on the YouTube, and they got blocked because they don't like the topic we're talking about.
Oh, I know. I saw that we got some removed.
It's like, no, you can't do that. It's like sometimes when I'm really stuck on an idea, I occasionally use ChatGPT just to kind of like grab some ideas to kind of spark my own imagination because it's dried up a little bit. And sometimes when you put stuff in, it's just like, no, that's not allowed. That's illegal. So it's like, okay, I'll use my own imagination then. That's great. All right then. Shall we? Would you like to do some reading from your work? I'm sure that the listeners would love for you to do some of that. And it'd be cool for you to read a section to do with one of the characters that you've talked about, so that we can kind of get a bit more of a picture as to what they're like and the reasons why you've chosen that character for that particular scenario. Adam, did you want to go first?
No. Let's have our guests go first, and if I get to read at the end, that'd be awesome. But no, let's have our guests go. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Who would like to go first? Dylan, Gio, that's the second time you volunteered. Awesome stuff.
Cool.
What I'll do, I'm gonna go on, Adam. What are you gonna say? Oh no.
I was just gonna say cool. I just say cool.
What I'll do is we'll mute ourselves. I'm going to put you on the nice big screen so everyone can see you. And I will try and mix your image in with the book covers of the books that you've got. Is that all right?
Okay, cool.
Super.
Thank you.
All right.
I'll read from I'll read a small bit from book number 2 and a small bit from book number 3. Not too long.
Yeah, that's fine.
If that's fine.
Go for it. Go for it. Of course it is.
The fireplace breathed the cold away, and the carpet was so soft I felt guilty for walking across it. But Grant seemed not to mind. He took my nightshirt from me with a necklace in it. "Give me that before you hurt yourself," he said, and smiled. "They don't burn so much when you're wrapped up," I said. "Still, we don't want harm to befall your little frame," he said, giving me a pat on the cheek. "I'm not little," I protested, just a bit slight. He winked at me. "Of course not. Come to my witching house. I've something to show you." I followed along, trying my best to look at his shoulders and not his rump. It was outlined well by his red silken nightshirt, which only made its way to his mid-thigh, exposing his bandy calves. Once we were there, he took a medium-sized silver bottle off his shelf, which seemed like a liquid silver light, and stood next to the circle in the middle of the floor. He stepped on a panel, and the circle split in half and withdrew, revealing a pool of crystal clear water beneath. The other necklace was submerged in the water with a bit of frost on the top. Grant unraveled my nightshirt, and the other 2 necklaces fell into the pool. He popped open the cork of the bottle and poured thick light into the water. I took a step back. "Don't worry, it's my essence." I raised my eyebrows. "Not that essence, silly. It's the essence of my magic. It's distilled moonlight. Us moon witches, our power waxes and wanes. So I need to store some up in case I need a little magic when I'm on the down end of the cycle," he said, and took out the silver rod from his night sleeve shirt. "Is that your magic stick?" I asked. "No, it is my wand. My magic stick lies elsewhere," he said, and raised his eyebrow. I went quiet at that. It made me uncomfortable, but I kind of still wanted to see it. He, however, had a cheeky smile on his face, kneeled on the stone floor next to the pool, and stuck his wand into the water and said, "Speak your secrets to me. I demanded unto the moon, which reveals all in her soft light. Serve me." The bowl glowed faintly, and then the water went completely still. My breath caught in my throat. "Let's go to the fire in the meantime. Let the sister trinkets chatter to each other," he said. We headed back to the living room, and we were in the kitchen, bidding me sit by the fireplace. "Let me get you tea. I was bringing some anyway." Master blushed a little because he laughed devilishly. "Thank you, Grant." I fiddled with my shirt buttons while he fixed us some hot brew. Again I stared at him on his way to me with our tea. The nightshirt's neckline made of V that came all the way to his diaphragm, exposing the mound of his chest just shy of the nipples. It also bore a small imprint of his Jones, which is a stick, if he took too big a step, which seemed to do all the time. "You like?" he asked, as he sat down on the opposite couch, the clothing riding dangerously high up his thigh. The nightshirt, I mean. Do you like?" I paid the seamstress extra so she could make it quickly, in case I got visits from certain Mr. Bailey lotters. I didn't want to be caught in my nightgown for modesty's sake, he grinned, and took a sip of tea, his eyes never leaving me. "I'm sorry about last time," I said, hugging my knees together out of embarrassment. "I should brush up on my manners and appropriateness." "It bothers me little, Bailey," said Grant, between sips. "But what does bother me is this damned wolf man. Found anything more since the last time you visited?" "Well, I want to say it, but I'm afraid you'll hate me," I said. "I won't hate you, probably," he said. "I haven't even told Jack, Emma, Lyle, or Jack." Grant rolled his eyes at the mention of Jack's name. "Who isn't as bad as what everyone thinks, I'm sure. But the wolf man, it seems, in my visions, which might be wrong, to attack people who are mean to me, and it kills them, or turns them into dogs." So that's from Hounded, and that is Bailey kind of in his flirtationship with Grant the Moon Witch. And then we go to our next Moon Witch, Ambrose, on his birthday, in Everything But Beauty, Book 3, 20th of February, 1896. We had come from a theatre after some awful play from Wailing Women and Brutish Highwaymen, and Dime a Dozen Love. It was a gross waste of time, but my friends seemed to enjoy it. But they were plebes, bless them. And then to a pub, lit more romantically than the actual play I'd come from. And the content was so much more interesting. Alcohol, pretty people, in possibly wearable fashion. I was, of course, in my favorite knee-high socks, beige pants, royal blue dovetail waistcoat, and a cotton shirt with a tricorn hat that would look ridiculous on anybody else, but naturally I pulled it off. "So what are your plans for the rest of the evening?" asked Jackie, with a short curl that I played with sometimes. "I was spending the night with 5 of you, of course," I said. "Going to the pleasure house?" asked Joseph. "The pleasure house? How drab. The real pleasure is in the chase," I said. "You hound!" exclaimed Bridget, in her blue heels. "Ooh, my eyes," which somehow made her brown eyes more alluring. "A hound? Never. Hounds are tamer than I joked. "And cuter," said Colin, with his know-all grin. "Why would I want to be cute when I could be gorgeous, Colin?" "And so modest," said Amelia. "Modesty is for the modest. I'm ordering us another round of the strongest stuff they've got, if you ninnies can handle it," I said. "Bring it on," said Colin, the weakest of us. The others egged me on, and I went right up to the barman, and said, "I want your strongest stuff. I want this to be a night my friends and I try to remember for a long, long time." "Well, we've got our special double brandy for 5. That'll be 25 coppers," he said. 25 coppers? This had better contain ambrosia from the gods. But fine, here you go, I said, and handed them my damn money. He stirred some alcohol up, 3 times the brandy, more brandy than usual. My friends collected them like pigeons for breadcrumbs, and downed them even faster than that. By the end of the glass, they were falling over their own feet. And I wanted more because I was a trooper. One absinthe. It's okay. I'm a witch and a bloody good one. I can handle some absinthe, I said. Well, 60 coppers then. My gods, absinthe isn't cheap, he said. All right, fine. Here's the money. I hope you're happy for bankrupting a man on his birthday, I said. Thank you, kind sir. I'll fix your drink, he said, and did exactly that. I put a double absinthe in as a present. Oh, you're a darling, I said, and downed the entire glass. I shouldn't have. I really shouldn't have, as I now had 15 friends instead of 5, and apparently 15 feet as well. I did not fall over one of them, though. Nobody had the ability to appear sober at all times the way that I did, and I wouldn't allow my reputation to be sundered on my birthday of all days. Bridget began the song. Happy birthday, feel the earth day, from whence you came. Happy fun day, feel the sun day, which doth warm your face. Happy you day, feel the moon day, which watches your dreams. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday. They all joined in at some point, and I was on one of the tables, hands on my hips, as I conquered another year of life in the big city. Get off the table. Fine. I'm doing it because I want to, I said, and hopped off, nearly falling on my face. Amelia and Colin caught me. Bless them. The entire night I was showered with attention and an inadvisable amount of alcohol, followed by my visit to the loo, where I vomited myself half to half sobriety. I rejoined my drunk friends and judged other people's awful choice in clothing and bemoaned our university courses, especially me, who had to interpret the ramblings of poets and philosophers. Why the fuck did I choose those particular courses? Oh yes, I was oh so talented at bullshitting people, as were poets. We spoke the same language at heart. There you go.
That was great. I just loved that. Thank you so much for reading to us. Make sure you unmute yourself, everyone. Gio, that was beautiful. And I loved hearing from 2 different books. That was awesome.
Really good. That was really good. I was trying out my camera skills, sorry, to try and have you on the screen so it wasn't just me, and it was a bit wobbly on Instagram, but I think I got all of it. And those covers are beautiful as well. Done a really lovely job. And I love the birthday song as well. That was so cool. What made you choose to have that in it? Just out of interest.
Yeah.
Oh.
Gio, I think your internet's gone a bit funny.
Oh.
Can you hear me?
Before can you please?
Sorry, we're having some glitch.
Gio, hang on, Gio, because we can't. I think is everyone else able to see everyone else?
We
can't.
It's the.
I think we're
hang on.
Something that happens on this because I didn't want to long, but he got and he
Gio, I've just sent you a message.
He got into a
Sorry, everybody.
home and
Bear with us.
then go.
Uh-oh.
Sorry,
Okay,
I
yeah,
know.
we lost his internet. Sorry, everybody. We must have had a bad connection there. He's in South Africa. Jules is in the UK. I'm in Portland. We've got people in Canada. We are all over the place today. So we're trying to make it work. So I think Gio's probably going to pop back on any second now, but that was great.
I sent him a message to say don't just try leaving and coming back again because his internet's decided it's going to play up a little bit. But yeah, that's fine. That's fine. All right. Well, I'll find out more about the birthday song when he comes back. So, okay. Who would like to go next? Dylan or Qualia?
I am happy to go next or to back cleanup, whatever makes you happiest. I think that's a sports reference, and I'm not sure I'm using it correctly.
I don't know either.
Did you just say cleanup?
Bat cleanup. I think it's a sporting thing. The person who goes after people around base, I think, is batting cleanup.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it's not a French maid. I had a vision of you in a French maid's outfit. Sorry.
Ooh, ooh.
I also have had that
With a
vision.
broom.
You still move hard. Still move hard.
Whatever order you would like us to go in, I'd be happy to
I don't.
participate.
Whatever's comfortable for you. Oh look, Gio looks like he's back. Hang on, let's see if we can get him back on again. Hang on.
Oh, ask him about the birthday.
Yeah, we'll do. We'll do. Hang on.
Hold on.
Hey!
Hey, sorry. Hey, sorry. I was just about to say, I stopped reading because it was gonna be a little bit long. But essentially, what happened is he got really drunk on his birthday, and then a highwayman came and held him at ransom.
Oh no.
Held him hostage. He was with a cabbie.
Oh. Gio, I'm really sorry.
And
your internet is.
Then he
really...
took his wand out and wanted
Okay.
to use moon highwayman in the heart, and then the guy drops. He finds then Ambrose bends down, takes the gun, and sees the gun.
Gio,
The highway.
Gio, if you can hear me, I'm going.
On him.
Okay. Gio, I'm really, really sorry. Your internet is breaking up a lot. So, oh. What happened there? Adam made a walk out as well. Oh God, we got people leaving left, right, and centre. Gio, if you can hear me, because I know you're still in the background there, it might be a question of you having to turn your computer off and then turning it back on again and letting it reconnect to the router, or just resetting your router. I really want to hear about this birthday thing, so don't go anywhere. Whilst we're waiting for your computer to kind of reset itself, I am going to let one of the other two read. Dylan, I'm going to just pick on you.
That's how it's done. Well done. Thank you. Hi. How's my connection?
You're a little quiet, but your connection's good.
Okay, I can bring up my mic a little bit.
I'm so sorry. I've just killed people on Instagram with how loud you just were. I'm so sorry.
I can take down my gain a little bit if you like. Let me know when you're happy with my gain, will you?
No, you're fine. I turned my speaker up at the same time you did your mic, and so I literally just like blasted people's eardrums on Instagram at the same time. Go, you turn your.
I made 2 adjustments. Tell me if you want it further up or not.
Turn it up a little bit. Yeah, that'd be great.
Here we go. How's that sounding for you?
That's a lot better. Amazing. There we go.
Thank you very much for that. I tried to do a sound check before the thing, and I just couldn't figure out how to get the return information from StreamYard. Hi. This is chapter 20 from Merlin's Mistake, coming September 30th from Danu Books in hardcover, paperback, and audiobook. You may notice that I have a small cut on my forehead about which I'm self-conscious. I've been claiming that I cut myself shaving, but it's not true. We have a puppy in the household, and she's very young, and in order to properly eat my nose, she needed to hold me in place with a claw. So I apologize if that is as distracting to anyone as it is to me. The only things that need to be set up before this reading that comes fairly late in the book are that the name of Merlin's foundation is the Liberty is Knowledge Revolutionary Atheist Socialist Society. And it comes up as an acronym in this, and it's a payoff to something that came earlier. I think that's really all you need to know. The silence that hung over the party seemed to deepen with the shadows. They stood together on the bank of the lake in their field, awaiting the arrival of the very purpose of their adventure, the subject of their imaginings, the object to make all others subjects. Again, Merlin saw deeper into the flaws of his earlier thinking. Would he ever learn, he wondered, to see his past failures without feeling waves of shame with each new revelation? An object to make all others subjects. What kind of fool, he thought. Sophia squeezed his hand gently, reassuringly, as though she had heard his self-recrimination and hoped to comfort him in his distress. But what she said was, "I don't know how you don't hate me." So he squeezed her hand in return. Carmine's military command voice boomed angrily down from the fringe of the trees. He said, "All of you, hands up, turn to face me, kneel down." They all turned to face him. Only Frank and Vivica raised their hands. Merlin wanted to reassure them, but he had only one intention right now. He had to stall. He said, "Come out here and talk to me like a person, man. These people stand under the protection of my 501c4 charitable organization." The hidden soldier shouted, "What's that?" Merlin and Sophia replied in unison, "Lick our ass." He and Sophia high-fived without taking their eyes off the tree line. She said, "You really set that joke up 106 years ago?" "Yep. Didn't get to use it until 1968. But when I came up with it, Gene Debs thought it was the funniest thing he'd ever heard of. Wish he'd gotten to hear it pay off." Carmine let the click and chunk sound of his gun be heard, and before it was finished, it was echoed by the more solid shatunk of assault rifles racking rounds and coming to ready. Merlin felt the well of magic accessible to him. He knew that somewhere just beyond him, under the water, the realm of fairy lay open, and the radiant magic available thrilled him with nervous memory of the days before he ruined the world. He wanted to reach into that well and make a grand show of sweeping his enemies aside with gusts of wind, to call flocks of birds to do his bidding, to laugh as lightning danced the surface of the lake behind him. He could do it all and more. That would not serve here, though. He listened to his breath. He focused on the moment. He said, "I thought Nimue suggested that you sleep off your meal and then go about your business." Carmine's retort came clear on the birch-scented air. He said, "Right now our business is recovering our kidnapped teammate and searching that plane for some kind of radar-jamming teleportation device." Stevie said, "I'm not kidnapped. After I put down my gun and you guys all went to sleep, I felt it would be right to continue to observe with Agent Corvus." "Well, get over here and report, soldier." "My report, soldier, is that I'm not done observing. Also, I think something pretty cool is about to happen." Merlin shouted, "And you're welcome to search the plane." A long moment of quiet hung over the area now as negotiations seemed to have reached the opposite of an impasse, and Carmine did not know exactly how to handle that. Merlin said, "Honestly, man, take yes for an answer. You and your guys can just come out and go look through our plane and ask us questions if you want." He turned to see that Vivica and Frank had dropped to their knees and still had their hands up. He said, "You two get up. In my questing party, we do not cower before thugs, even when we are frightened." Frankie stood up uncertainly and helped Vivica to her feet. Still, there had been no movement from the tree line, so Merlin said, "The problem here, Carmine, is that you've been trained by movies and television, by the reckless use of some powerful magics. You've been trained to believe that everything must always escalate. You've never been taught that sometimes things can move along excitingly without conflict. Not every story must end in gunplay and violence. Some of us are trying hard to tell a different kind of story, with a different kind of climax, a different sort of resolution." Carmine, the words blurting from his lips before he had the chance to think them through, shouted the truth. He said, as though it was a direct order, "I don't understand what the fuck is going on here." An overwhelming sound thumped across the wide expanse as two new uninvited agency support helicopters came in low over the scene, appearing over the trees. Their spotlights blurred and blinded, the vast thudding motors deafened. The beating of propellers battered the senses with subsonic gut punches. On nylon ropes, the men slid down from open hatches to land on the waterfront near the edge of the woods. Smedley, the spider, whose name seemed to have grown 3 or 4 syllables every time Vivica mentioned him, jumped down from her shoulders and scurried across the expanse toward the nearest chopper to examine their technique as they descended. The night suns burned enormous focused LEDs, slanting columns of light downward, one from each chopper. The descending soldiers, invisible in the hatches beyond the glare, appeared from above into the light and came to ground with the projected ellipse. Each either hit the ground running or shoulder rolled to regain stability. Each team found a place to anchor a well-rehearsed formation. They knelt without speaking to one another and leveled their weapons at the small group of unarmed adventurers who stood with their backs to the lake. Merlin admired the choreography, the intimidation, the drama of the entrance. His observational critique prevented the spell from properly disheartening him into meek submission. The helicopters pulled away, relieving him of the sensory bombardment. He turned his back on the woods now, his threatening counter-negotiator with his handgun, Carmine's squadron, and his newly airdropped reinforcements. The downdraft disturbed the glassine surface in a focused circle beneath each flying machine. Those rippling areas overlapped the spread of the spotlights to create an incredibly accurate Venn diagram of those parts of the ancient magical lake disturbed by the modern machinery, those parts of the ancient magical lake illuminated by the modern machinery, and those parts of the ancient magical lake affected in both ways. He chuckled. He had developed that chuckle centuries earlier while on trial, during a very unpleasant presentation by a Spanish cardinal regarding the nature of submission to a force greater than oneself. Something funny occurred to Merlin, and he chuckled before he thought about it. The pious douche had stopped and glared at him, trying to guess what had caused the reaction. Merlin realized that he would evermore take every opportunity in confrontational circumstances to chuckle at anything he found the least bit amusing, simply because it so unnerved the other participant in the conflict. Just as the helicopters fell far enough out of range that he thought Carmine might be able to hear him again, he turned back toward the woods. The original batch of soldiers had emerged sneakily. It had been loud and he had been distracted, but he decided to show them respect for their stealth, so he allowed his surprise to show as he adjusted his focus and shouted to them. "What do you say? You want to search the plane? Your your soldier is right here. Sorry, Stevie." "It's cool, man. You're trying." "Thanks." Then the helicopters went silent. Merlin shouted, "All right, everybody, here we go." The shame he felt minutes earlier about what his girlfriend and, oddly, Frankie were about to learn about his psyche vanished like morning mist under the warm pride of workmanship. He had made mistakes, and it might be embarrassing in its naked naivete. It would be rougher around the edges than he remembered, and things he had done for the first time then would seem cliché now. But it was a beautiful thing he had imagined and created and hired a real live fairy princess to perform. That she was now a fairy queen and performing it only out of friendly spite did not matter. Hell, it made him feel a little bit like he had real friends in strangely high places. The sight of the helicopters, silent and stopped in the air with their weird crop circle water formations suspended to oil paint stillness, held everyone's attention for a moment. Then, a dozen meters landward from those beams, a tiny spot on the surface of the lake caught the moonlight. It reflected white and clear toward the party, growing slowly from the night water. At this distance, with the trickery of moonlight and the reflection, it became impossible to discern the movement toward the shore. What had been just the tip of the proto-steel blade now emerged above the water into the moonlight as the reflection doubled its length. Nausea swept through Merlin as he watched it. He recognized abruptly the extent to which he might as well have just bought Arthur a cuirass emblazoned with inlaid gold that said, "My wizard friend has phallic insecurity." He chuckled at the new adversary he had found in his younger, idiot, trying so hard self. The pride trickled down into the endless maw of recrimination. Sophia bumped him with her hip. She said, "It's beautiful." He groaned, "It gets worse." She looked at him for a moment, but he could not meet her eyes. He watched as the sword slowly expanded upward through the undisturbed surface, penetrating and emerging. Then the crossguard breached the surface. He winced. Before she came near enough to be a person, like a perfume ad that reveals the glamorous beauty a bit at a time, delaying gratification, her hands came into view, wrapped around that hilt. Merlin choked back embarrassment. The water ran down the spiral wrap of the hilt and over Nimue's little hands, limned against the dark water. It dripped, a stretching stream from the sigil-scarred pommel to the very center of a widening circle of ripples where it touched the unmoving lake. He remembered it now as he watched it, exactly as it had been all that time ago when he had thought of the sword as a symbol only of majesty and power. The two times overlapped, becoming a small bridge from who he was then to who he was now. Even that first time he remembered it, in a way. He had imagined the staging so thoroughly when he was so self-certain and young, and thought of the ripple pattern only as a druid symbol of unity, universal containment, and expansion, and the dozen other things implied in that culture by concentric circles in their various iterations. Now, as Nimue's head emerged from this Georgia O'Keeffe spread of yonic surface tension, the moonlight caught the slick-down shape of her glamour-glowing head. Merlin remembered an aesthetic decision he had made and knew he had gotten it right. She would not speak yet. That would be too weird. Her head emerged fully from the water now, although the shape of her down-damp hair disguised the turn of her neck. The bright reflection hid her features. She would rise silent, both stark and indistinct. She would approach as an archetype, all promise and ideal. She would approach silently. In the dark of the night, with the moonlight behind her, she continued toward the shore. Their depth perception meaningless with so little ambient light, nobody but he would know that she simply walked toward them, holding the sword aloft. She would move forwardly, smoothly, seeming to rise from the lake. He heard the breathless wonder of the audience as they took it in, this simple bit of magic theatrical he had employed as part of the grander spell he had woven. She had been right. This image with her at its apple core center was very much a part of the lasting legend, the work of the spell he had wrought. The moonlight gave the sword shape against the dark lake, despite the spotlights behind, calling out their strange, frozen ripple patches like lunar symbols etched in ice. I will stop there. You were muted, Adam, so I'm going to talk over you.
We're back. There we go. Yay, thank you. We're back.
This is the moment in the book. The book starts with this sort of barely arguable anti-war stance, right? Merlin figures out that he ruined the world by putting all this power into a weapon. So he's got to find it and destroy it. And as it goes on, he figures out more and more how obsolete all the ideas in the legend he created are. So that by the time he gets here, he is for the first time recognizing the misogyny and the male dominance implied in the sword as the symbol of power. And it's and ultimately it's the young black woman from New York who has to be the new hero, because and she's a peacenik and a martial artist, because what the world needs is these new stories in which conflict is resolved differently.
Nice.
Awesome. Yeah, your writing is beautiful. The delivery was awesome. Really, really appreciate you sharing that with us. That was great. And I think that your stuff really fits in with us. I know we're joking about what the topic is today, but all of us on the show are writing things that are very progressive, super looking for other solutions, putting characters in scenarios where they're not usually there, twisting tropes, flipping scenarios on their heads. And I think that's important. Bringing up other styles of relationships, different type of people. I think all that representation, making the heroes not boring white guys, not making the villains boring white guys, not making everything a fucking boring white guy all the time, and having all this representation of what the world actually exists as. I think that's in all of our vibes.
Firstly, that's part of the reason that I was so excited about going with Danu for this book, because that's clearly the vibe of the company, right? And the vibe of this podcast and the vibe of the work and the people involved. But there's something else that I'm doing in this book that I didn't notice I was doing until I was having a conversation about it in a meeting a few days ago, because I'm trying to sell a series. I'm also creating a recognizable aging white guy who is capable of change. Um, right now, and I am not by any means doing the everybody blames white guys now route. You know, there's no work for me because I'm a white guy. I'm doing okay. You know, I'm not claiming not to have benefited from my privilege of various sorts. But also, there's this idea now that white guys all need to be killed off. That we broke everything and we refuse to change, and everywhere we are characterized in television now, we are the bad guy. In much the way that, you know, the Easterners were the bad guys in the 80s and 90s, and then, you know, and gays were often the bad guys in the late 70s and early 80s without anyone acknowledging that's what was going on. And what I'm really trying to create here is a very old white guy who's doing his best to keep up. That change is possible, that evolution is possible, not just at the individual level, but at the larger level of society. Also, I finally wanted to write something that was marketable. You know, magic and ancient symbology being re-examined. I don't get to the takedown of Christianity until midway through the book. And what happened to the pagans, and in the second or third book, what happened to the Native Americans, right? Where anything that was not property-based was destroyed, and destroyed to such an extent that it's forgotten.
It's a very powerful story of symbology, and even the original you know, myth or legend, you know, even now people want it to be true because of the symbology of the togetherness of the Knights of the Round Table and what they stood for and their honor and their duty and everything else. But it does have really significant misogynistic undertones to it too, like with the phallic vision of the sword.
There's a moment in both the book and the limited series where Merlin, in a moment, says, "The table, that was his idea. The Yonic symbol of unity. He got it right. I was busy with the weapons and the fighting."
Yeah, and it's interesting as well how. Sorry, go on, Dylan. I didn't hear you.
Sorry, I said I kind of made Merlin an old Jew. He's so based in me. I just realized that there's so many ways that I just made him an old Jew.
I think it's interesting, isn't it? And also sometimes as authors we write something and we don't realize how significant it is or the symbology of it or anything like that until it's either pointed out by someone or like later on down the line. So that's also quite a cool little revelation there.
Have you and I had this conversation before, Jules? Because I work with the symbology of what I'm doing now consciously as I begin. When I started, I didn't at all. And my second screenplay, the one that sort of broke me in Hollywood in some ways, was about a hero in a mythical land who gets out of hero school and goes on a quest for a magical item that his brother was lost searching for, and it turns out it's been hidden away in this mythical this realm, this other realm that has reasoned away all its magic, called New York. And he goes to New York to find this thing, finds it very quickly, and then can't get home because his magic doesn't work.
Oh.
And then realizes that his brother is trapped here too, because his magic doesn't work in this world. And it wasn't until 30 years later that I realized that when I wrote it, I had moved from New York to LA to a different city and was learning that none of the magic I had learned worked and didn't know why I couldn't go home. I didn't know why my father had given me a bunch of spells that didn't do any good here. They were all about art and creativity and not about sales and commerce. And I knew I wasn't allowed to run home. And I didn't know until 30 years later that that's the story I was writing with that script.
Wow.
with each new piece that I wrote,
Yeah.
it would be less time before I realized what I was writing about after I'd written it. And
Wow.
with the new one, I was making decisions about what I wanted to say and how I wanted to say it. And I was kind of kidding when I said that I finally wanted to write something marketable, but it's sort of true. I finally took enough control of what I was saying through the story that I wanted to be certain I was writing in a form that follows contemporary structures with the climax in the right place and enough visual stuff so that people raised on television and film will enjoy it, and so on. And I used Jim Butcher tricks, I used Brandon Sanderson tricks in it, because my intention was to get this work to as wide an audience as possible, not to put down on page these things that I like saying.
It's really, I find that for me, writing is a form of therapy, I suppose. It gives me the opportunity to visit those darker places that I'm not able to experience in the real world. So in my dark fantasy series, the stuff that Ray goes through and the trauma that she experiences, and then her journey to healing, and through that process, it kind of reflects a little bit about how, without dealing with trauma, it kind of festers. And so, there's lots of symbology in my book too. And, I've taken lots of inspiration from actually one of probably the most famous Celtic leader in our land, which is Boudica. And I love Celtic and pagan imagery, and I love, the history that went on there. So, I kind of blend the real with the mysterious and the symbology.
And I do not understand why nobody has yet done a Boudica series.
Oh, don't you worry. That is, I'm planning one.
It seems to me that history is well worth exploration and cinematic explosion. Did I just fix something in the sound, or did I ruin it all?
It still sounds the same. You're a little muffled, and I was hoping that would change it, but that didn't make any difference. I'm surprised. Okay, sorry about that.
It's a very fancy, expensive microphone that doesn't like working with online function. It's the one I use to record.
For recording? Yeah, no, I have the same issue, yeah.
It's fine,
I might be able to change it out so you could get the mic that comes straight off my camera, but I don't know that would be any better at all.
Yeah, don't worry about changing it now. No, I just thought if you, that's why I sent the message, that maybe it would fix it.
I appreciate it, man. Every Zoom call seems to begin with 12 minutes of mic check now.
It does indeed. But I mean, in terms of like the books themselves, Boudica is very much one of my heroines that I really greatly admire. I'm not going to go into her story now, but if you're interested, I can do. But she was just amazing what she achieved and accomplished.
Marvel Comics done an Asgard parallel around Boudica. You know what I mean? Like,
because it focuses on a female character who is in the lead, and I hate to say that, but it unfortunately does play a part. So like, I play computer games, so one of my favorite games to play is Horizon Zero Dawn and Horizon Forbidden West, and it's a female protagonist. And when the producers went to go to Sony and say, look, we've made this game, Sony was just like, no one's going to play that. And the reason why is because it was a female lead, which is just.
Do you guys know the series Avatar? Obviously, you guys know Legend of Korra, Legend of Aang. They actually didn't want to greenlight Legend of Korra because they plainly said that Avatar's more for boys and girls, and no one will watch Legend of Korra because it's a girl. I mean, Avatar is one of the most prolific series ever, and in Korra's inception, Nick Studios were literally like, we were thinking of giving this the red light because Korra is a female avatar, and it's just not something in the Avatar unit. I was so shocked.
Wow. I hate to say that I'm not.
Tale of a Hero and the Song of Her Sword, my first book, available at Amazon.com and DylanBrody.com/Emporium. When I was first trying to sell A Tale of a Hero and the Song of Her Sword, I heard from several agents, and then my agent heard from several publishers that no one was interested in publishing adventure fantasy with a female in the central role, because they could not imagine it being made into a movie. That was the reason they wouldn't buy the book, was because if it had a female in the lead role, they couldn't imagine selling on the franchise rights.
Wow.
Fortunately,
It's shocking, isn't it? But it's bad for this year. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we need to
Makes
get
my head
Qualia to
cool.
read. Let's get Qualia up
Yes,
here.
yes, yes. Oh no, hang on. Sorry, Qualia. Before you read, I want to find out about this birthday song. Gio,
right,
you
Gio.
man, your internet. You broke the internet. So hang on a second.
reading my section.
What's that?
Hang on a second. Let's get. Where's the comment? I was trying to find the comment that was made. There was a really awesome comment that was made from you for you. Hang on. Where's it gone? It's disappeared. I was looking at the comments for the comment to do with the internet thing that was made about you, Gio, but I can't find it.
That's all right.
Someone
said you
oh,
broke
no, there
the
it is.
internet.
There it
Yeah,
is. Yay.
you broke the internet. There it is.
You broke the internet. There you go. That's how awesome it was. I love it. I love it. So on Instagram, they loved it. I loved your read. It was awesome. I loved your singing as well.
We heard you straight to the end. Yeah, we heard you straight to the end. And as soon as it ended, I think you were just so impressive. We lost the connection. It was so awesome.
May I finish reading it?
Did you? You did. You got to the end. Yes.
You did. So may
I finish reading it?
Oh, was
I
there
thought
more?
you finished it. Yeah. We actually heard all the way to the end, and then we asked that you finished, and then we started asking you questions. And as soon as we started asking you questions, your internet decided to go. It was that impressed.
May I explain what happened in the scene? I don't want to take up more time with reading.
Yeah.
You're good. You're good. Dylan, I'm just going to remove you for a sec. I'll put you back on when you come back.
So what happened was, he got drunk, right? And he got a carriage home. He got a handsome carriage home. He flagged one down. And then a man stepped out from the darkness and said, "Give me all your money." And he put a gun out, and Ambrose said, "Whoa, okay, I'll give you my cash." But then he's still quite drunk. And then he took out his wand, and he's a moon witch, and he can use glamours and illusions and what. And he thought, okay, I'm going to cast a spell. But rather than do that, because he was drunk, his wand extended and stabbed the man through the heart. And then the man was on the ground. He picked up the gun. The gun was fake. There was no threat. And instead of calling for help, Ambrose then used his water magic, because moon witches have control over water to a certain degree, and threw the guy into the river, despite the guy not actually posing a threat anymore, because he was panicked. And then he was like, and the only witness to this was a cabbie. And then Ambrose turned to the cabbie and he was like, "You take me home right now. And if you tell anybody, I will find you. I am a witch. I'm rich. Go to a university, reputable university, and I will find you and I will erase your memories and no one will care." And that's kind of how the scene ended, was with this cabbie taking him home and dropping him off. And that was kind of it. That's where the scene ended, with him going home and never facing any consequences for what he did. So, yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that's really interesting that you've kind of left it with a sort of like a, the progression of the character and where that's going to go and how that's going to work, because it kind of leaves the reader wanting more closure, but also wanting to find out more as to like what was the decision making that went behind that. Yeah,
that's kind of what happens with each painting. that a situation happened where you're kind of like, okay, it was his fault because it was his fault that he got drunk, but it wasn't his fault because he didn't know the gun was fake, but it also was his fault because he could have called for help when he found that out. So every single situation that happens behind each one of those 4 paintings is a situation whereby he did something wrong, but was it really actually his fault, or was it the fault of the other person? And you don't know. And that's kind of the crux of the novel. So that's the first in the series of situations which happens where you don't know who's actually in the wrong in the situation at all.
Wow.
So yeah.
Wow. That's really hard for the reader, isn't it? Because the reader's kind of left going, well, what, who? But I suppose in a way you're kind of allowing them to make their own mind and make their own decisions about who they think it is. Yeah, that's really cool. I like that. Very interesting. Just to remind you, can you drop your links in the private chat, and I'll stick them in the live comments for people to then access it outside of this, and for future people whenever they watch it. But yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, and thank you so much for being so patient and just kind of like going with the flow, which is kind of how we roll here, isn't it? It's very relaxed. All right, thank you very much for joining us again, Dylan. And Qualia, it is you remaining. Would you like to do some reading for us?
Sure, yeah. I've been I've been slowly stripping throughout the show, and now I'm drinking.
No one has noticed. Oh my god! I didn't notice.
You startled Jules with that one.
I genuinely didn't notice. It's like, okay, I'm not going to go to the psychology.
By the end of the reading, where you'll be naked.
I'm just staring lovingly at Adam.
I assume it made my reading more tolerable.
Oh,
your reading was fantastic. Your reading was fantastic.
Yeah.
Sorry, now my dog.
Puppies! All right, okay. Qualia, I'm going to put you on the big screen. Sorry, Dylan. What was that?
I just love that everyone has dogs. That everyone's got dogs running around making noise in the background.
Yeah, they're like 100% part of the show. Part of the show, absolutely. All right, Qualia, let's put you on so that you can actually do your lovely reading. Hang on a second. Get the right button. There we go.
I'm going to do something that I've never done on camera before. I'm going to put on my reading glasses because I'm in my 40s now and now apparently need reading glasses. So this is from my story, Electron Spin, which is out now. And I guess I'll just give a quick kind of where we are in the story before I kind of jump into it. So this scene takes place on a prototype spaceship that was stolen earlier called the Midnight Owl, which was originally named the Argonautica. Sorry, I had to wave goodbye to my family. And this spaceship is like top of the line. Even for the far future, this spaceship kind of dwarfs anything else that's out there, and the main characters have kind of stolen it with no real purpose behind why they stole it, except they thought it would be fun, and now are traveling around the galaxy kind of as a hybrid group between being sort of Robin Hood and his merry men and a rock band. So they help out where they can, and they play rock band and just basically be a bunch of punks flying around the galaxy. And this scene takes place with my main character, Esmeralda, who a long time earlier was a assassin android and is now the keyboard player in the rock band. It was late, so other than the soft hum of the engines, the ship was as quiet as the vacuum outside the hull. Earlier in her life, Esme had preferred the quiet. Throughout her long centuries spent alone, with nothing but her thoughts for company, she'd been content. Since she'd been living on the Owl, though, she'd realized that she preferred to listen to music. She reached into the front pouch of her oversized pink sweater and pulled out the special headphones that Graham had insisted she use and slipped them over her ears. The leather was soft and warm against her skin, and they were a lot more comfortable than she'd expected them to be. She reached inside the front pouch and pulled out the small music device that Graham had given her and pushed the chunky red play button in the center. The throbbing bass lines of Aphelion, the current musical sensation from the dance halls on the planet Juno, began to pump into her ears. It made her smile, and she began to sway to the beat as she went about her silent march through the ship. The song's tempo gradually built and became dreamy in a way that reminded her of music that she used to dance to many centuries earlier with her lover Kai Althea back on the planet Athlon. Walking past a wall terminal, she saw the reflection and smiled at the sight of herself and how much she had changed over the years. Her hair was short now, barely making it to her chin. Although she was still fair of skin, she had removed most of the blue tint that her earlier body had held to show that she was an android. At the end of her slender fingers, fingernails that had never been colored previously were now painted black. Her brown eyes now held glints of purple that shone even in the darkness. And aside from her pale pink sweater, she was wearing tight black shorts made of a material that Graham called denim, and some shoes that she'd found in the printer's registry called sneakers. This was a far cry from the Esmeralda 09B that had rarely removed her Athlonian military uniform. But the universe had moved on, and Esmeralda was trying her best to do the same. The speed of the music picked up, and Esme's rhythmic swaying turned to dancing as she glided along the halls of her ship. Her hoodie, as Graham liked to call it, felt so warm and soft, and its lovely color reminded her of her lover's hair, a memory so long ago that it felt like another lifetime. Hello, old friend, she smiled at her reflection. She liked who she was becoming, happy to finally feel like she was reaching a place of peace within her existence. She closed her eyes as she danced, imagining that Kyle-Thea was there with her, dancing and grinning as they moved along with the thumping beat. Kyle-Thea had been dead for over 500,000 years, but in Esme's electronic memories, it was just as if their first dance was only yesterday. Since returning to galactic civilization, it had become apparent that the galaxy had long forgotten that Athlon had ever existed, but in her mind it was always there and always would be. Reaching the bridge, she felt a sense of ease in the stillness of the room. It was smaller than it would have been on comparable ships, but Esme liked the coziness of it. Directly in front of the large main viewer were the pilot's chair on the left and the comms and operations seat to the right, and an auxiliary seat and console against the walls on either side, with the big captain's chair in the middle of the room. The back end by the door held a small complement of wall terminals for any additional staff that might need to be present. All controls were also able to be routed directly to the captain's chair, which, because it was a prototype, made it effective so that the ship could be controlled by a single pilot. Esme flopped down into the brown leather pilot's seat and reclined, putting her feet up on the console. The bridge was her favorite place in the ship. Between the forward viewer and the observation windows, it looked as if the front half of the bridge was made entirely of glass. On the viewer, streams of colored starlight blurred past on all sides as the ship swam comfortably through hyperspace on its way to the outer arm of the planet Krill. Hyperspace was such a blessing in its ability to get people across the galaxy in a hurry, but it was a double-edged sword that Esme had known both sides of. Long ago, on her quest to find the fabled Calliope door, she'd once spent hundreds of years at hyperspace, traveling across the universe to another galaxy, in the hope that the Calliope door would reunite her with her long-lost princess. When she finally returned, the journey had only been hundreds of years for her, but had been 500,000 years for the rest of the universe. Relativity, it seems, could be a real bitch. If she had had control over her programming at that time, the despair that she felt at being such a temporal fish out of water would have caused her to end her existence, but at the time, her Athlonian directives prevented her from self-destruction. As a result, Esme was forever a being out of time and adrift. She had spent hundreds of years in isolation, never feeling at home, no matter where she went. Luckily, their current trip was only a brief jaunt through hyperspace. 3 days would only be 6 weeks for the rest of the universe, and the people of Krill would still be there to receive the artifacts that the crew of the Midnight Owl were returning to them. She tried to avoid lengthy hyperspace journeys now. It had taken her a few years, but she'd finally begun to feel like she was readjusting to what now was called galactic civilization, and she was certainly in no hurry to have to do it all over again. Focusing on the music again, she appreciated it for being there, being something she had never truly enjoyed earlier in her life. Since they'd taken up residence on the Midnight Owl, music had become a metaphor for her life, or the life that she wanted to have moving forward. Music was art, it was beauty, and it was always changing. She'd started her life as an assassin and royal bodyguard, but that life had long ago lost meaning for her without her beloved princess to protect. Making music was her purpose now, and trying to make people happy. Her life on the Owl with her new friends, it meant everything to her. If they ended up stepping in to stop injustices where they could, well, that was even better. The music carried her away as she drifted along, trying her best to evade the ghosts that always seemed to plague at the background of her memories. I'll leave it there.
That was wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
I
Your
thought,
voice.
I thought your prose was so beautiful. It was so gripping.
Oh, thanks. I feel very connected to that character. She has helped me process a lot of my own trauma and grief,
Mm.
and she just refuses to go away as well. So she started out originally as a background character. She was going to be the other main protagonist of this story. She was going to be a kind of holographic person in the background that didn't really have any backstory, and then took over the story and has now taken over this entire what will eventually be a trilogy, as well as my previous anthology of shorts, and kind of mirrors my own transition moving towards a more feminine existence, as she finds her kind of femininity moving away from more of a assassin killbot android. But through loving the princess, falling in love with the princess allowed her to not gain, it's kind of a play on a lot of Android stories where when I was a kid growing up, it was like droids from Star Wars. It was the classic Data from Star Trek, which is, a Pinocchio metaphor of the artificial boy wanting to become human. But I really appreciate now there's a cultural push where synthetic life forms are flipping that, and they're like, I don't want to be fucking human. Screw that.
That's awesome.
And,
Totally
so
awesome.
I really like that. And yeah, I've got some really fun stories planned for her in the rest of this trilogy. So it's exciting for me just to have seen her grow, even just from the initial story to the anthology to now this one. And now I'm almost halfway done writing the sequel to this. So it's fun to see the characters evolve.
And that's what I was going to ask about the evolution of the characters. How do you do your writing? Is it all free flowing? Does it just come as it happens to you, and that's why she sort of has evolved and taken over the story by herself? Or did you see that she was such an interesting character and then sort of make the plan for, oh, what if I put her into the main role of a book?
I have very little control in the process. I just sit down and start writing. I have a very kind of Jungian process of writing where I just write and then let the creativity do whatever it's going to do, and I have as very little input as possible. It's always initially based on dreams that I have, because for my entire life I've had extremely vivid dreams. So I usually wake up 3 or 4 times in the night and jot down notes. I dream about this character probably once a month, and I get new story ideas. And I really do feel that she tells me how she wants her story to go. I've kind of crafted the beginning and the end. I've got book 15 lightly written already, and now I'm working on filling in books 2 and 14.
Wow.
15?
Yeah. It'll take me a
Holy
decade.
cow! 15.
It's it's just fun.
Wouldn't use it for just like
It's fun to
and your
write.
goal, Gio.
And I just, this is really just a hobby for me. I write. I don't even know what to call it. Like, I don't make any money at it, so let's call it a hobby. But I just, people ask me like, how do you write so much, or what keeps you writing? And I just always say, I just can't stop. My advice to new writers is, if you can stop, just do that. Because it quickly consumes your life. If I didn't have a spouse and a 4-year-old, I'd probably, like, if my spouse packed up and moved out, I would never date anyone ever again, unless Adam moved up to Canada. But I would probably just sit alone in my apartment and just write all the time, which I understand, through doing therapy for the last 2 years, is, while it's creatively beautiful, it also is a negative coping mechanism, because if I'm just writing, I control the entire universe, and I don't have to engage with people in real life, which is a lot scarier than writing. But yeah, I literally can't stop. I write, a couple of thousand words almost every day.
Well, let's think about it as passion rather than a hobby. I think it's more than a hobby.
Yeah, I agree.
It's just life. It's just life. It's a fact of my life that it probably will never go away. I write because I can't stop.
That's awesome. And I love that it's such a free flowing art form.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
It's definitely something I practiced. Like, I started writing at like age 6, and as a teenager, I would get so frustrated. In particular, I'm sure most of you can relate, but when you first start writing, you're always writing in someone else's voice.
Yeah.
For me, it was, as a teenager, I was either writing in Kerouac's voice or Robert Heinlein's voice, because those were the two writers I was obsessed with as a teenager. And so now I feel like I'm actually writing in my own voice, at least most of the time. And so now writing's not, I don't get writer's block or anything, because I assume the first draft's going to be garbage, and I just start writing, and it just kind of comes out.
I think that's quite an interesting hurdle to jump over, isn't it? I think most writers can work with that, in the sense that, if you can accept the fact that your first draft is going to be shit, but it's okay. You just keep writing and rewrite, and then keep trying and keep going. And I think that when you see the first draft, quite a lot of authors give up because they see how rubbish it is, and they're like, oh, no one's going to want to read it. I know that my writing tends to be rather dramatic, like the old American style movies, where it'd be like ultra exciting and ultra dramatic, and this really exciting voice is kind of saying, this is really exciting, that kind of thing. And I'm really over the top and just cheesy as fuck. So, Dylan, you wanted to jump in and say something.
I did. I also loved Heinlein when I was a kid. At what point did you go back to them and realize what a reactionary prick he was?
That's a great question.
I will still defend him on certain things to the grave.
So will I, but Jesus Christ, his social policy is awful.
It is awful. Well, and it is inevitably going to be awful. Number one, he wrote a lot of these books, 50, 60, 70 years ago. So it can't be read the way you'd read a modern thing, but it's absolutely is.
There were writers at the time, though, who were exploring far more progressive ideas. I mean, even then, he was a horrible right-wing, pro-military, just everything I loathed. And I had no idea when I loved his work when I was a kid. It was just such wonderful writing. And then I went back and I was like, oh, wait a minute. I don't like him.
Yeah. I mean, at the time, the thing that really drew me to him as a young person, I was given Stranger in a Strange Land at 12 years old. And I mean, the first book, I will immediately be like, I don't read Starship Troopers ever again. Because it's just like 2 steps away from like some really dark stuff. But like, it's interesting being Canadian too, because a lot of his writing, I'm just like, that's just how a lot of Americans write about stuff. They're just far right people.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, like, it was vital for me reading his work, knowing it was written in the 50s, and same with Kerouac, writing in the, or even earlier than that. But it was just vital to me to be reading sci-fi that had queer representation in it,
Right.
and that
Yeah.
everybody was polyamorous and a slut. And there's just you have if you can't you have to be able to take Robert Heinlein at this point with a massive grain of salt. Because I mean, like, how many stories does he end up fucking his own children? Stories, right? You got to take huge grains of salt with this. But like, he was an idea man. I thought that is what I really appreciated. His libertarian far right stuff, is too much for me. But some of his ideas I think still really hold up.
I'm right
In
with
fact,
you.
the scene in Stranger in a Strange Land where the old man Jubal Harshaw is so grieved by Michael's death that he is like stroking out and dying because of it is one of the first books that, and still, like, if I'm sure if I read that scene, it would make me tear up. Like, it really moved me as a child that he wrote that a man could be so moved by another man's death that it was killing him. And yeah, I just really appreciated that. But yeah, no, I agree. Massive grains of salt with that. But I mean, like, Kerouac is still one of my favorite writers, and he was a complete drunk maniac.
Well, yeah.
Kerouac would be eaten alive today. I mean, just even the autobiographical nature. If Kerouac wrote those books today, everyone he knew would have sued him.
Yeah. He's not my. I mean, Ferlinghetti and there are a lot of guys that I loved. Kerouac is not at the top of my list. I always, his misogyny made me cringe even when I was in high school reading him.
I think my life of depression connects me to Kerouac because he was very much writing, especially like one of my favorites is Big Sur. And in Big Sur, the whole theme of the novel is basically his acknowledgement that he was going to drink himself to death because he couldn't move fast.
The only one of his I loved was it Maggie Cassidy, the one with the one. I love that piece where he's really exploring his own memory. But then, sorry, I turned this into a literary seminar. I didn't mean to do that. Oh, what is the name of the dog?
I know. I was just saying, I'm getting so distracted by the puppy.
This is Lola. She's distracting. She's been clawing at my leg to jump up and sit in my lap because she's a pug. Say hi. Say hi. Here we are.
Quelia, your read was beautiful. Are you doing your own audiobook on this?
No, I hate the sound of my own voice. I
Well,
won't even be able to watch this podcast.
So you will know.
I do have audiobooks on the way, which I'm excited about. But I think part of like sliding from more masculine into a non-binary space, my voice is still quite deep because I am like, regardless of my transition, I'm still 6'2" and 190 pounds.
It's fucking.
And I have a deep voice, so I'm like, oh.
Well,
but thank you, I appreciate that.
It's sultry enough to make a married middle-aged man confused.
Yeah, I think all three of you read absolutely beautifully, and you read in a style that really matched your book and what you had written. And I think all three of you should look at doing audiobooks, not just for yourself, but for other people as well. You should advertise yourselves. Get yourself a little setup with a little mic and a steady internet connection, Gio. And that was a teasing dig, by the way. So, but in terms of your voice, I think all three of you definitely have the voice that people want for their audiobooks. So, for sure. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, all three of you. I've really enjoyed the show. It's been amazing. This is the first time we're actually properly live. This is our brand new space. This is us from now on. We will get the Instagram sorted for next week. So people are still watching me. We got a lovely little heart from someone, which is nice. And we've also got people who are watching us live and got lots of comments as well. So thank you to everyone who's taken part and just been here with us. We really appreciate it. I will just remind everyone again, if you want to be on the show or if you want to like come back again, we would like all three of you to return and be guest authors again, because we love having returning guest authors, don't we, Adam?
Yes, indeed.
Very, very cool. And also we'd like to continue building our writing community. So if you are interested in being part of that,
As long as you're, if I may, Jules, I know that I think you run workshops of some sort through Danu Books. Is that right? I also run some workshops through Active Voice Productions, and anyone who wants to write, I firmly believe that the way we can save the world now is by indulging our most creative and innovative impulses.
I completely agree. And I have no doubt that AI is definitely not taking over the writing world just yet. I have got a lot of confidence in that. You might think it is, but
I mean, I'm starting my creative writing master's degree in 2 weeks' time, so I'm going to be writing.
Oh wow! Very good.
Yeah.
That's very exciting. That's very exciting. You have to keep in touch with us and let us know how you get on. But yeah, if you want to join the Discord, hit Adam or I up on our Instagram. I've posted it in the comments on the YouTube. So you can all go and look at that. We're also I'll post them on Instagram Live in a sec if I can. If not, I'll post them on the feed so that people can hit up with us as well. But anyway, it's been amazing seeing all three of you and listening to you. And thank you very much. Take care, fare thee well, and see you all soon. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.